Welcome. You found your way to MindLife Mayhem.
Congratulations.
Conversations exploring critical challenges affecting people's ability to lead a full life.
MindLife tackles the construct of psychiatric disability as we have known it.
With brave and fearless thinking, MindLife finds new ways to challenge the old narrative.
We invite you, either as a help seeker or a help provider, to think, live and ultimately be different.
I'm Gill Townsend.
And I'm Helen.
We're ready to take on the challenge.
Are you? So MindLife, when we were talking about doing things differently and not falling into the trap of trying to shift and change people, how did you go about that within the project? How did the project do things differently from the normal thing about we're going to create something to change people?
One of the things that the project said right at the beginning that it was a human-centred design project. So we used the thinking and the elements of human-centred design throughout the project.
What does that mean?
Well, human-centred design uses design thinking, the thing that you might design a good Coke bottle or something. So the techniques that have been used in design throughout the years, but focused on humans. And so the key thing about human-centred design is that it starts with deep empathy, with understanding the people who experience the problem.
So getting into the shoes of the people you're designing for.
Yeah, and before that, there's a whole lot of deeply understanding what the problem is.
Yes.
And we kicked off with the problem that information linkages and capacity building grants want to explore, those problems of social connection.
And was it the problems that people talked about? How did you go about that? The empathy?
Yeah, so the thing that was really, really interesting for me was the beginning was empathy interviews.
Yeah.
And so for
empathy
me...
empathy maps.
Empathy maps and journey maps. Yep. And, I've been a social worker for a long time and I thought, I've got empathy. I know what that is. But when we're using empathy maps and journey maps and empathy interviews, I spoke with the same cohort of people I've spent years working with, people who either had NDIS packages, who were waiting for an NDIS package, who had, several different diagnoses. So people who I'd worked as a service provider with in different areas. And empathy interviews, I've always described it like a mirror ball. It just gave different shapes of the problem. So we asked people, tell us about the last time you went out in the community and did something that you really wanted to do. Almost everybody leaned in, looked at me and went, something I really wanted to do? I went, yeah. And people told me stories of things that they did that was really important to them. Small things, paying respect to a family member, going to an entertainment venue, just relatively small things, but that had been really, really important for them.
So my understanding of that fits into all the design work, design thinking, service design thinking, human-centered design, is that as designers, we look for the touch points that are the pain points or gain points. And when we understand what gives life to the gain points, the things that we actually want to keep a hold of, we learn from that. And then we look at the pain points, the ones that give us aggro, friction, make it hard. We drop out of stuff. We don't stay in those spaces. We don't persevere in that space. They're the points that we have to redesign. So we're trying to shift our pain points into gain points. And all good, organisations and for-profit organisations around the world are trying to minimise their pain points and maximise their gain points through different design of touch points. And I think this is where we learn from people who are the experts of their experiences to say, there's some really common pain points here that probably aren't articulated in the same way. And we create these how might we statements. And I think you created some really bold ones that really shifted our mindset into the design process from these empathy interviews. Yeah,
because we also interviewed people who were help providers, people who work to support workers, a whole range of people. And the themes that came across. So, we that's what's really wonderful about human-centered design is it's really creative.
And
so
flips.
We come up with a creative theme. So How might we create resources that prevent Groundhog Day?
What does that mean?
Well, at Groundhog Day, the same thing over and over again. There's that movie with Bill Murray, but it's a common term, the same thing over and over again.
And that's very different from what I imagined the government thought they were purchasing around building capacity. It's like preventing Groundhog Day. How might we prevent Groundhog Day?
Yeah, I don't know. I've never seen that come up in a report before.
Or a request for funding. Can you provide us with responses to prevent ground? But that was a very pain point that everyone had.
Yeah.
For both for help providers and help seekers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The other we came up with an idea. How do we create resources that enable us to dance better together? And we came up with the dance analogy because it's that. How do we understand and connect and follow each other?
And how frustrating it is when we can't dance.
We're not on the
together.
Same music. We're not on the same page. We're not on the same step.
We're on each other's toes. Yeah. I like the one that I saw about how might we create resources that don't out me.
Yeah, because that was
so the one, how might we create resources for access all areas? That's a big, bold vision, access all areas.
Mm. That came about for how to get through those barriers that people, and sometimes they're real barriers and sometimes they're barriers that we put up for ourselves and imaginary barriers.
And I think access all areas, you go to a concert and you see someone with that dog tag around their neck that says, access all areas. Yes, and access all areas means I can go anywhere. And you kind of go, how do you get one of those? Yet we're quite often locked out of access all areas in our what does that mean?
Yeah, like that locked out notion of, that job's probably not ready for you because you're not up for that yet.
Yeah, so this access all areas that someone's actually envious that I've got an access all areas pass. And you've written a great blog around the access all areas.
Yeah.
You've forgotten
Thank you. A blog or a story? Wrote a story.
But I think you've written a blog too.
Yeah, that's true.
Access all areas. Yeah.
So our blogs are resources that are online on the website that you can read illustrate.
You've focused on resources, not shifting, measuring whether services have shifted or changed, or help providers have shifted or changed, or help
Yeah, we weren't. Yeah, the project didn't set out to measure change necessarily. It set out to create events and resources
to help people manage those pitfalls.
Yeah,
and so these are the pitfalls that we're naming, is that we can not have access to all areas. The how might we questions. So those how might we questions came up. There must have been hundreds of ideas that came out. How might we create resources?
And I think that's the beauty of human-centered design, is that you allow the thinking to go as wide as possible, and then you have to come back in again. That we intentionally recruited people to be part of the human-centered design who, yes, one had experiences of the problem, and people who had no experience of the problem, from communities, businesses, artists,
Why was
a whole
that
range of different people. Because it's when you're in the situation, you're in the problem, you can't see the answers. So the outside views, they could see some clear ideas for things that we could design. So human-centered design is not a linear process. It's not an easy trackable process, and it's exciting and frustrating, and I hope has given us some resources that address the pitfalls and that address some of the common themes that came out,
and therefore opportunities for people for themselves to use those resources to change redesign their touch points around from pain into gain.
Yeah, that's right.
And so this never ends. Then this keeps going. The process keeps going. Someone else might take it over, but
look, the project end, human-centered design as a process has an end where you have an implementation phase of the things that you've done, but the ideas don't end and the resources don't end, and so we would encourage people to take them forward. The other thing that we talked about, we weren't there to evaluate. We've got external evaluators to the project. and we've been fortunate enough to work with Black Dog, who are undertaking an external evaluation on how well did we use human-centered design, and how useful are the resources.
For people to navigate those pitfalls.
So
I'm interested around the kind of, there seems to be a growing swell of followers that are now following MindLife and getting engaged. And what do you think that's about? Why do you think people are attracted to these conversations that have been around for a long time? Because I think they're coming in their own time and off their own energy. No one's forcing them to come.
Yeah, I think it flips back to the genesis of the idea for MindLife.
Yeah.
Is that there's a general frustration and a feeling that we may have lost our way a little bit. And our intention is to create environments where people can transform their lives, where people can flourish. And so, the people who are engaged with MindLife want something different. And they are thought leaders, and leaders within either in their own lives, in their own
they're
powerful
influencing
way.
other people.
So it doesn't end.
No, it's kind of like you've set it alight again after, if you go back 20 years, you're probably having these same conversations, and they've kind of died down, and now you've set it alight again, and hopefully it just keeps growing and fueling itself to go forward.
Yeah, hope so.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
Yep, MindLife Mayhem. You've been listening to MindLife Mayhem.
Yep.
Please engage with the website and take the resources and go and talk about them with your friends.
And if we've provoked you in any way, we don't apologise.
No, don't apologise. But we do thank you. You've been listening to MindLife Mayhem with Helen Glover and Gill Townsend. This project is funded by the Australian Government Department of Social Services via an Information, Linkages and Capacity Building grant. MindLife is an initiative of Bridges Health and Community Care. These podcasts have been recorded at the Arts Nexus studio on Madangi country, and the music is by Jeremiah Johnson. If you've made it this far, you are clearly a MindLife change agent. And we've got a gift for you. Go to mindlife.org.au and download the resources that will help you to continue to avoid the pitfalls in either seeking or providing help.